Well, there are a few things certain in this life: death, taxes, general human despair, and, basically the media basically drumming up a new thing to be outraged about, to blame the president for. So, he would be having a really good week. I mean, he got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and things have been going really well in general. He's doing very well with the inner city communities. More plans going forward. He's just had a really good presence, and the Democrats, that they're scrambling, you can tell, because Biden's completely flipped his platform. He's basically adopted Trump's 2016 platform minus the wall, and he's like, they're really desperately trying to say, oh, he's anti-military, he's anti-whatever. It's like, oh, you mean he's pulling troops out of Iraq, and the military-industrial complex doesn't like him? Like is that supposed to make us like him less? It's kind of funny. But of course, that didn't stick. None of it sticks. And to my surprise, the post office thing didn't stick. Now, the post office thing was played very, very well by essentially the Republicans and the Trump people, because what they did to defeat that is they said, okay, let's keep drumming up this controversy, and now let's take a deeper dive into the post office. And then that basically every time the post office came up, they're like, well, there's fraud here, and there's these problems with mail-in voting, and there's this, and there's this. It's like one story after another, basically completely collapsing the Democrats' narrative about mail-in voting being, secure, which it's not. And then to the point where the Democrats now, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the post office anymore. They don't want to talk about the mail-in ballot stuff. They just want you to know it works and it's secure. And the meme out there that the president is suppressing the vote, that's just where they want the conversation to stop. They want to move on to something else. Adam Schiff's doing more Russian bullshit. Adam Schiff, he should probably be tried for, I don't know if it's treason, but it's like sedition or something. Like he probably should be in jail for what he has done. I can't tell whether he's a psycho or he is just such a soulless political op that he just, it's up to him to lie and to bring up these questions, and then keep pushing this BS story because, got to defeat evil Trump Hitler. Schiff's a scumbag. I don't know why anybody takes anything he says seriously, but the left does. The left does. You still see people talking about it. And now the big one, Bob Woodward book. Some interviews with President Trump where President Trump says exactly what he said back in March, because the interview was from March, and people are outraged. He lied and people died due to COVID. He downplayed it. Now 190,000 people are dead. Okay, that blatantly ignores so many other facts that you have to you should know before coming to that conclusion. President Trump back in, he told Bob Woodward this, but who he also told this? I think it was March 23rd, I believe. Jim Acosta was berating him at a press conference. Jim Acosta was saying, well, if you knew it was this bad, then why did you? And then President Trump's like, look, we sent the CDC over to check things out basically December, January. All the experts were basically trying to figure out what was going on in January, February. When I realized it was bad, I immediately closed off the borders to China, and then soon after closed it off to the Europeans. He was called a racist. He was called a homophobe. He was called using Corona to make people afraid. That's what they accused him of. That's what the media accused him of, and that's what the Democrats accused him of. In the meantime, basically it's in March, and Biden's still having his things that you want to, I guess you could call them rallies, but whatever. The Democrats are having parades in Chinatown. Like it was crazy. Like, that's not an exaggeration. That's actually what they were doing. And the president said he didn't want to overplay it because he didn't want people to panic. There was just a PPE shortage. Why was there a PPE shortage? Well, because the Chinese had basically went into all the Western countries and bought up all their PPE, including the government's stockpile of the Canadians. Yeah, they got duped pretty good. Way to go. Whoever's looking out for Canada's national security interests has their head firmly planted up their own ass, because they allowed the China to basically completely buy out all their PPE from underneath them and didn't even question it. All while basically these reports were still coming out basically since November at the latest, that this Wuhan crap was going down. I mean, I saw videos of people having seizures in the streets, and the Chinese government is welding people into apartments. Okay, maybe they were overreacting, but that's still something that should, kind of like raise some alarms. Now, some of us were paying attention. Styx Hexenhammer, great example. Somebody was paying attention. He does the whole infectious viral disease stuff. He's talked about the Ebola epidemics. This stuff, I guess it's his fancy. because it fascinates him. And also, he's of the mind that basically we're overdue for a pandemic because, these things happen every 100, 200 years and to varying degrees. And, it's time. And there's some truth to that, right? But also, be prepared and be smart. And then when there's a shortage of PPE and then saying, okay, we're going to shut down the borders and do this stuff, basically, I'm going to tell you, we're working on it. We got it, for the most part, under control. We're still going to do everything we can. I mean, that's the thing. It's not like he said we have it under control and then did nothing and sat on his hands. If he had done that, then maybe you'd have a case, right? But no, not only that, he said, basically, calm down. We got it under, we're working on the problem. They built the hospitals. They mobilized the government. They mobilized the manufacturing. They did everything they possibly could. Nobody who needed a hospital bed didn't get a hospital bed. Nobody who needed a ventilator didn't get a ventilator. Nobody who needed medication didn't get a medication. With the exception of the fact that governors then banned certain medications because, evil hydroxychloroquine or whatever. BS, all right? You have to ignore so many other factors leading up to, basically, to right now, to then say that, the president lied and, it was some sort of malicious, evil plan so he didn't have to do anything because he downplayed the virus. Nonsense. They were calling him a racist, homophobe. Oh, I'm sorry, not homophobe, xenophobe. Probably called him a homophobe too. But they were calling him a racist xenophobe for cutting off travel when he did, right? So, all those people, like Biden and all the people running for the DNC and all those surrogates who came out and basically shit-talked the president for closing off the travel to China, Pelosi included, yeah, sit down. And I think it's part of it is that, basically the left, they weren't paying attention until basically it came time to reopen. And then that was when it was time to reopen, the Democrats, they got, oh, look, this is working out good. We got all this power and we can keep the economy mothballed essentially until the election. And they started pushing the fear propaganda, the actual, fear propaganda, basically people freaking out and screaming at each other for not wearing masks and stuff. And now that they bought into that, now when they hear literally what the president said back in March, publicly, they hear it now secretly in recording with Bob Woodward, they're shocked and they're surprised and they're appalled. And it's do you guys remember what you were saying about the president back in March? You were saying he was overreacting. He's using this to be a dictator and all this. That's what you guys were saying back in March. You can't keep moving the goalposts like this. It's obnoxious. But you can't tell people that. You can't have a conversation with them because they're just oh my God, 190,000 people died. And even of that number, that seems actually really high for what the actual, practical estimates are. What they say 6% didn't have detectable or at least known comorbidities, and the rest of them did. One of the things the president wasn't even correct because back in the March interview, basically they were saying that at the time they're oh my God, this is super dangerous for the young and for the infants and for the children. It turns out it wasn't dangerous at all for kids, not at all. And they're trying to say now oh, he knew it was bad for children and now they're reopening schools. No, it's because the information changed because what they thought back in March did not pan out. It didn't end up being the case. Kids are not really at risk. The military was a good example, right? Navy had an entire carrier group essentially knocked out by this virus going rampant through their ranks, right? And Navy was trying to deal with it. They were trying to contain it. And they had that admiral who came out and was oh, I gotta release a public letter because I don't feel like things are being done enough about it. Well, I'm gonna chalk that up to him having the virus and getting fevery because that was incredibly stupid of him to do that. Because I know, he's got to look out for his own people. Yeah, but you're not looking out for your own people by saying, by the way, our carriers are extremely vulnerable right now. Now, I get it, but he's also the guy who had them docked in Vietnam when this basically outbreak was occurring. So he wasn't exactly, proactive about it anyway. Whatever. My point talking about the military is that they've had 7 people die. Active military. 7. Only 7. This big, evil, nasty virus that was, hitting guys when they're out at sea and all this other 7. I think Biden said it was 6,000 the other day. Yeah, Biden just makes stuff up. I don't think he makes it up. I think it's whoever's putting stuff in his teleprompter makes stuff up. And then sometimes he doesn't even read that. He just makes incomplete, incoherent sentences. But to anybody who's been paying attention and not freaking out like a maniac, this wasn't a surprise. This was a non-story. Like, why are people upset? Like, the president told us this back in March. Like he's a cheerleader for the country. He's not going to say, oh, he said it's going to be over soon, and we're going to work through it. Hopefully, it'll be over, within whatever months, right? That's confidence. That's good. I mean, it's not over, but it's effectively over. The risk of overcrowding of the hospitals and stuff is pretty much gone. We're dragging it out because people just want to be afraid. You're getting mad at him for downplaying the fear, right? Or basically not wanting people to be afraid, and then you see the way people are acting now, especially on the left, who are afraid of this. I can't argue with him. Like, me, if it were up to me, the government would just be completely transparent and be like, here is the dry facts. Analyze it as you will, right? But now I'm kind of thinking, and I'm like, wow, even with the president essentially trying to cheerlead and be like, hey, we're going to get through this. It's not going to be that long. We can do this. It's not as bad as maybe everybody thinks it is because we're going to be working on it, which is true for the most part. And we can build the hospitals, and we can flatten the curve, and we can do all the good stuff, and we can get ahead of things, and we can be on top of pharmaceuticals. We can be on top of vaccines, and people are still freaking out. Like, just shock and fear. It's and you can't talk to somebody who's hysterical like that. You can't. They're just gonna say, 190,000 people died, and he lied about it. Well, what did he lie about? What was the lie? What was the lie? When was he lying? At what point was he lying? Oh, he downplayed it. He was optimistic about it. Is that really the problem? That's the big lie? You mean the fact that he was closing the borders down and doing all this proactive stuff and assembling his team back in December to take a look at this? Was he not supposed to do that? Was he supposed to tell people like, hey, something really serious is happening in China and it might kill 2.2 million of us? Is he just supposed to come out and say that? I mean, that's an argument at least. But then you can't point to Biden and the Democrats and say that they handled it better, because they didn't admit that there was a problem until basically, it was mid-March? Mid-March is when they first recognized it was a problem. They were saying, this is xenophobic and come down to Chinatown. There's no reason for anybody to be worried. And then they're putting people with COVID in old age homes when they don't need to. And then cutting off basically the subway travel to basically make sure that the few people who do need to work all get packed together so it spreads as wide as possible. Democrats made horrific decisions basically on local and state levels. And it's almost like because the federal government gave them the power to do that, now they're blaming the federal government. It's like, how dare you let me shoot myself in the foot? It's like it's lose-lose. It's lose-lose. There's nothing you can do to make them happy. I mean, look at South Dakota, right? South Dakota said, we'll take things under advisory. We do have a small outbreak. We will focus on that, but we are not going to lock down. We're just going to tell everybody what's going on. South Dakota is pretty much COVID-free at this point, And when it does pop up, it's not a big deal because they never had an overrun of the hospitals. They're not short on supplies, and people aren't, screaming at each other because they're not wearing masks at the grocery store. South Dakota, turns out, did it right. South Dakota took it was a little more nuanced approach than Sweden did. Sweden was just let's just pretend it's not happening. And that didn't work out too terrible, actually, because luckily enough, the strain, at least that was going around in Europe and the United States, wasn't as bad as whatever was happening in China. Oh, why does America have number one in cases? It's because we're number one in testing by far. That's why we're number one in cases. Statistically, it's impossible that China and basically India have less cases than us. It's impossible. Just in terms of population density, it's impossible. Because basically they could be spreading it at a slower rate because they're doing a better job of containment, and they still statistically would have far more people being infected than we are. So you see those numbers, and you got to remember it's because we test. If we stop testing and we tested at the same rate that like France just stopped. They were like, all right, we want to get back to work, so we're just going to stop testing. They only test in like very specific cases, and they don't report it constantly. Now we have it where if you get tested twice and you test positive twice, that both gets reported to the government, and the government says, oh my God, there's There's 2 cases when it's the same person just being tested twice. And then when somebody tests positive and then they test negative and then they test negative again and it turns out that was a false positive, that's not removed from the rolls. It's really, really, really frustrating because it's like the left, they have no idea what's going on. They don't know what's going on, so then like information like this comes out and they freak out. Guys, calm down. Trump is not Hitler. He's not trying to kill you. He's not telling you to inject bleach into your eyeballs, despite what CNN told you. You know, if you've been paying attention from back in January, from when the president first started taking action on this stuff, or actually really December, and if you've been paying attention before that to the international news to actually look and say, wow, this really bad stuff's happening in China, maybe we should, be paying attention to that, then you wouldn't be freaking out right now. And you'd be saying, president did pretty good. Hindsight's 2020. I'm sure there's other things we could have done differently. He should have been more forceful about lifting the lockdowns. Probably could have given better guidance to New York City and whatnot, because I don't think anybody expected they were going to be as incompetent as they were. But all that stuff, all the Democrats don't even acknowledge that there's an issue until basically the end of March. Like what? I don't understand how people are just indignantly upset about the president's handling of this. His handling was fine. He did very good. Every time they asked Dr. Fauci to basically shit on the president, Fauci's like, no, he took everything we said to heart and acted on it. We never felt politically pressured to do anything. We just told him, what the information we had. And Fauci got a lot of stuff wrong too. And Fauci is the one, if anybody, sending mixed messages, right? But it's only convenient. It's obnoxious. It makes it impossible to talk to people, because now, if you're a Trump supporter, you're supporting somebody who somehow willingly killed 190,000 people and is covering it up or something. Like, that's insane. That's insane. Have you not been paying attention at all the last couple months? Like, you're just gonna believe this? The media's gonna feed you this? You're just gonna lap it up because Orange Man bad? Sad, frustrating, divisive. It's the government, the Democrats, like they already said, basically, like if Trump wins, they're going to get violent, right? Oh, expect violence. And now if you've got a bunch of people saying who actually believe the president somehow killed 190,000 people through negligence or deliberate misleading, which there's no evidence of that, but that's the narrative being pushed. Then suddenly, maybe violence isn't so bad. Maybe it's tolerable. I don't know what they want. I mean, do they want somebody to like assassinate the president? Is that what they're really hoping? Like they push the right person's buttons and then they snap and then get lucky and kill the president? Is that what they're going for? Like I don't understand. Like, it's so dishonest. But whatever. I don't even know what to say. Moderates, you guys got to talk to your left wing friends, because there's nothing us on the right can say. Because we're actually like emotionally pissed off about this, because it's like we were telling you from January that this was an issue, and the president took actions, and you mocked us and called us xenophobes, and now in hindsight you want to now say, oh, we didn't do anything, or the president did, downplayed things in a manner that was irresponsible or something. It's tiresome. It's tiresome, because I can't go back and reteach them what they weren't paying attention to back in January, February. Because you tell them that, they're just going to have 1,000 different excuses. Moderates, walk these people off the ledge. Like, I should say, away from the ledge. I'm not over the ledge. Because this is ridiculous. They're pointing fingers at us like we fucking killed people. And it's like, no, we didn't, actually. We were proactive. We did more good than your Democratic politicians did, by far. Because you guys were just calling us names. And now you're going to pay attention, and now you're going to act like all upset because, we were basically trying to tell people not to panic. Whatever. I don't know. Frustrating. That's 20 minutes on me slamming my head in my desk, into my desk of... how do you counter this? This insanity that people lap up? I don't know. Whatever. Just... don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't take the outrage bait. Moderates, step up. Try to de-radicalize some of these lefties, because this is getting ridiculous. It's getting dangerous at this point. it's getting dangerous, because the more and more, the bigger the lie, they have to keep making the lie bigger and bigger and bigger. And at a certain point, that's going to, in somebody's head who would be otherwise reasonable, it'll justify violence. So, the media, the Democrat politicians, they're not gonna call off their dogs. But you moderates, you guys are the only chance we got. Otherwise, it's going to be a fight, and we don't want to fight. We don't want to be a mess. All right. Can we all agree we don't want that? Well, that's the thing of the left at this point. They kind of do want that. And it's like, God damn it. So, whatever. This is my plea to the moderates. Step up. Step up. Reel some of these people in, because this is getting ridiculous. It's getting out of hand.